Let's start this way. Nigeria is said to have billions of dollars in public assets, and sometimes probably underutilized, undervalued, or completely lost. Would you say that we're doing so much in helping to trust where these funds are, and when we recover them, how they are judiciously used? Because there are some questions about how recovered assets are relooted. So what would you say the National Assembly is doing to help keep the nation on track and the various organizations also on track?
Thank you once again. You'll recall that in the Ninth Assembly, the first step taken by the National Assembly is to establish an ad hoc committee to look into public assets that are in wrong hands, mismanaged, underused, like you rightly mentioned, and those that have been wrongly converted, by successive public officials, civil servants and what have you. And after that investigation, we came to the realization that in the 10th Assembly, there was need to establish a statutory committee to look holistically at the management and the use and the disposal of our public assets. In our investigation, we have discovered that we were able to establish, contrary to the opinion of the Nigerian Builders Association, that Nigeria has assets that are underused, abandoned, and all of you, what have you, that is up to the tune of about 860 billion naira. And when we started our investigation, part of what we did was to look at some of the assets that were wrongly sold. For example, during our investigation of the activities of the Nigerian College of Aviation and Technology in Kaduna, we discovered that 2 of our brand new helicopters were hurriedly sold just about the eve of the transition into the 2023, dispensation of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So, in the course of our investigation, we called the auctioneer. We discovered that the auctioneer that was, approved by the school, by the college, to sell 2 helicopters, was actually registered to sell pesticides.
Wow.
Yes, it was registered to sell pesticide. And then we discovered that instead of doing an advert for public bidding in national newspapers, they did the adverts in one local newspaper in Kaduna, in local language. And then the advert that was supposed to run for like 21 days, was just done for about 3 days. And then the helicopters were sold. And then we also discovered that the helicopters that were sold to companies that we couldn't even trace their addresses. So at the conclusion of that investigation, the House resolved that those helicopters should be recovered and be taken back to the schools. And I'm sure that the police are already handling that, because we recommended the arrest of some of the officials there, including the illegal auctioneers. Then, in the course of our work, we discovered that there was need for legislative framework to govern the use, the management, and the disposal of federal government assets. This has been done before by previous administration, putting them under the office of the Attorney General in the recovery of assets, and then, the disposal of those recovered assets from politically exposed persons, And in order to prevent that act of recovering and then looting back, we gave the Ministry of Information, the Ministry of Finance Incorporated, new power. We did a repeal and reenactment of the Murphy Act, because the last one we had was in 1957. So, and that has gone to public, hearing, We have finished the second hearing, public hearing, and we're just at the concluding stage of that legislation. We're not only looking at that, we're equally looking at legislative framework to protect critical government assets, you know, against vandalization and extreme terrorism. Right. You are aware that many times we have had cases of, you know, transformer, transmitting station, power lines belonging to the federal government being vandalized. And when you look at the law, you know, you discover that the punishments in those acts are so minimal to the extent that it does not discourage anybody.
All right, Honorable.
From committing those crimes.
All right, Honorable. There was a matter that came up on the floor of the House very recently, and that's the trade fair controversy. This has sparked one of the House's most heated debates in this session. Now, the bone of contention here is which committee should supersede that probe. Is it, some of your colleagues are saying the Committee on Commerce, and you are insisting that it belongs to your committee. Why are you so convinced that this project, or this probe rather, should be overseen by your committee?
You see, since the Committee on Public Assets came into being by virtue of the new standing order of the House, many of our colleagues are yet to come to the understanding of what the committee should be doing. They are so protective of their agencies that are under them. But what we say is this: you have the power. All other committees, you know, have the power to oversight the functions of their committees, you know, whatever they are doing, their budgets, the execution of their budget and all of that. But when it comes to those committees, I mean the agencies, the FDAs, selling any government asset, then it must come to the Committee on Public Assets, because the mandate is so clear. Oversight all MDAs. For example, there was a time we wanted to open up investigation of assets of MPA. You know, the Committee on Ports and Harbour, we had to have a tete-a-tete with them. I said, look, we are not taking over your job. We're just looking at the PPP arrangements of government assets that have been entered into by the MPA. Same thing with NTA. When we invited NTA, do you know that the MD that came to represent NTA could not tell us the number of stations that NTA have in the country? They put it to around 60 to 65 stations. And then we had to tell them, look, you guys go back. Let's have a database of all the assets. Nigerians know how much every Nigeria, almost every Nigeria, knows how much Nigeria owns our debt. But what we own, they don't know. They don't know. When I put the figure of abandoned assets to about 860 billion naira, people marveled. And then I pointed them to places like Port Harcourt, GRA, where you have a host of federal government assets, NIPOST, NTA, MPA, all of that, works. And then we said, do we even know how much of government assets, that's projects that have been abandoned in between? So the standing order is very clear. Order 109 is very clear on this matter. Even to the extent that all assets outside the shores of the country are to be oversighted by this committee. We were in USA. We saw some of the assets of the federal government. We sent some of our members to UK to go and look at the assets belonging to MPA. You know, the old MPA used to have a lot of build assets, properties in UK. They are all lying there. Then you have the embassies in every country. Properties belonging to the federal government. For example, we were investigating the foreign affairs at one point. And then we asked them about our embassies in Germany. They have two. One is being used, one is abandoned. And we are still paying all the rents, government rents, on that particular property. The money coming from the taxpayers' money. So we said, these wastages, we have to put name to it. And then we have the recovered loot. It's a massive work. It's a massive work.